At 11:47 p.m., a neighbor picked up her phone and dialed 911. She reported screaming, a woman's voice, coming from next door. The dispatcher logged it, marked it Priority 2. No unit was sent. At 1:13 a.m., she called again. This time, silence from next door, which scared her more than the screaming. The dispatcher logged it again. Same address, same priority. No unit was sent. By morning, the woman next door was dead. But to understand how that happened, how 2 calls became 2 logs and nothing else, we need to go back to the night it started. Her name was Carol Reyes, 34 years old, a nurse. She had moved into the house on Alderman Street 8 months earlier after leaving a relationship her coworkers described as something she didn't talk about. Her neighbor, Sandra, had introduced herself the first week, brought over coffee, said if Carol ever needed anything, the walls in that neighborhood were thin. She meant it as comfort. Carol had filed a report 6 weeks before that night. A man had been outside her car, sitting, watching. She didn't know his name at the time. The report was filed. No follow-up was assigned. 3 weeks later, she filed another one. This time, she had a name. That report was also filed. The night of November 14th, Sandra woke up at 11:40 p.m. to the sound of an argument through the wall. A male voice. Then Carol's voice, sharp and high. Then something that wasn't a voice. Sandra waited 7 minutes before she called. She would later say she didn't want to overreact. 7 minutes. The 911 system in the county was operating at 64% staffing that night. 3 units were on active calls, 2 were on break. 1 was en route to a separate domestic call across town. Priority 2 meant respond when available. That night, available never came. Sandra stayed on the phone with the dispatcher for 4 minutes. She described what she heard. The dispatcher told her a unit would be sent as soon as possible. At 12:09 a.m., the call was closed in the system. Reason logged, duplicate, refer to prior report. There was no prior unit. There was no response to refer to. At 1:13 a.m., Sandra called again. She told the dispatcher it had gone quiet. Completely quiet. The dispatcher asked if she could see anything from her window. She said no. The dispatcher told her quiet was usually a good sign. It wasn't. At 6:52 a.m., Sandra knocked on Carol's door. There was no answer. She called 911 a 3rd time. This time, a unit arrived in 11 minutes. The investigation that followed would take 9 months. The man Carol had reported, twice, was identified within 48 hours. His name had been in the system since her second report. A record, a prior domestic charge, a flag that was never escalated. He was arrested 4 days later, 2 states away. At the inquest, the county reviewed the dispatch logs from that night. The official finding was, no procedural violations occurred. Sandra testified. She asked one question. She asked why a duplicate flag closed the call instead of escalating it. No one gave her a direct answer. 2 calls, logged, closed, filed. Carol Reyes had done everything right, reported it, named him, had a neighbor willing to call twice in the middle of the night. The system processed all of it correctly. And that might be the most disturbing part of this story, because this wasn't a breakdown. It wasn't a rogue dispatcher or a missed radio call. It was the system working exactly as designed, prioritizing efficiency over response, paperwork over presence. If that doesn't make you want to ask what yours looks like where you live, I don't know what will.